welcome to Legal Affairs. My name is Diamond Liddy, and I'm the public defender of the 19th Judicial Circuit. We have a fabulous show today. Believe it or not, we have a brand new Chief Judge of the 19th Judicial Circuit, and he's with us today to talk about everything that's going on. And I want to welcome Chief Judge Tony Schwab.
Thank you, Diamond. Pleasure to be here.
No, this is going to be great. Okay. Before we get into the last Chief Judge we had on the show was Judge Merman, and he was, we did the show during COVID when all the stuff was going on. It was crazy. And of course, then you got elected to the position. You've been the Chief Judge now how long?
Since July 1st of last year.
Oh, boy.
We're running 2-year cycles.
Okay. And just so the public knows, the Chief Judge is an elected position by whom?
By the other judges.
Okay.
So besides the regular election cycle or appointment cycle that you would have to become a judge.
Right.
Once we are a judge, to be, in essence, the managing partner of the law firm, so to speak.
Right.
The chief is elected by all of his contemporaries.
Okay. And all judges are on how many year terms?
All of the judges that we have are on 6-year terms at this point, but they're all staggered terms, so not everybody is up at the 6-year mark at the same time.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, that's procedural. Let's talk about substantive. Tell us a little bit about you, where you came from, where you worked before, your background, your children, I don't care, anything you want to talk about.
Sure. So originally a Florida native, born in Fort Lauderdale, and then transplanted to Colorado for much of my upbringing. Once I got done in Colorado, I went to the University of Colorado for undergrad, University of Denver for law school, and then decided that I was tired of scraping it, dressing layers to protect against it. The cold got to me, so I came back to the beach.
I didn't realize you were born in Florida. Okay, great. Okay, so go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So 93, I came back to Florida, had roots here in St. Lucie County, and passed the bar and went to work my first job for then State Attorney Bruce Colton.
Right.
So I worked at the State Attorney's office from 93 to 97, did a brief stint in private practice, started my own firm with a partner in 2000, and did that until I was appointed by Governor Rick Scott in 2013.
Wow, okay. So it's been 9 years now.
It has.
Wow.
Time flies,
Well, and that's pretty impressive to be the Chief Judge after really a relatively short stint, you know, I mean, as a judge.
Well, I was very honored that my fellow judges decided that I was the guy that could perform that function at this point. Judge Merman did a wonderful job during COVID.
Right. Well, you've still got COVID stuff going on. I mean, it's not over.
No. Technically, we're still operating under the order of the Supreme Court regarding COVID protocols and the order that we have here in the 19th Judicial Circuit. Again, that order encompasses Indian River, Martin, St. Lucie, and Okeechobee counties. And we're still, as a state and as a circuit, going through that backlog of cases. If you take a look at the total number of cases statewide at this point in time for the backlog, it's in excess of 400,000 cases. Now, that encompasses 67 counties.
Okay.
So that's the entire state. We've done very well. Our judges dug in very hard. Our staff dug in very hard. Your office, the state attorney's office, the private bar, through the period of COVID. And of that number, we're only between 1% and 3% of the total backlog throughout the state.
Really?
In all 4 circuits.
Well, where's the biggest backlog? Dade, I would imagine?
I honestly don't have which county it is or which circuit it is, but I know that they've broken those numbers down by circuit criminal, circuit civil, probate, family, county civil, county criminal. And across the board, as to each category, we're between 1% and 3% for county-wide of that backlog. So we've done a tremendous job with the resources that we have in order to keep that ship steering forward.
Wow, I did not realize that. That is great. That is great.
It is. It's a testament to all the people that work in the system.
Right. Well, we were just talking, you know, before the show. We're just so blessed that we all get along and can work together. I mean, we're, you know, the state attorney and public defender adversaries in the courtroom, but when it comes to making important decisions for the best, you know, the betterment of the circuit and the clients and the people we serve, we figure it out.
We do. It's a production, right? I mean, you have to go ahead and be able to manage people, manage time to move the cases forward.
Right.
Manage your juries so that people, as they come in and they're part of the system, that they know that they're going to be able to get in, do their function, and then orderly leave. And in the process, that we're going to keep bringing that backlog of cases, those case numbers down.
Right. Let's. I'm jumping around now,
Sure.
but you know, once COVID hit, of course, we shut things down, of course. But once things started ramping up, jurors were scared. They didn't, you know, we had I know you know better than I, we had a hard time getting people to come in, to serve, to want to be in that setting. Where are we with jurors now? What's the sense you're getting on that?
Sure. So when COVID first hit, and we ended up, in essence, coming to a juror standstill for a brief period of time while we were getting our hands around the problem, over the course of the last 2 years at this point in time, that has evolved to the point where now when we get jurors into any of our 4 counties, we still accommodate to the extent that if somebody would like to wear a mask, we'll be happy to provide one.
Right.
If they want a social distance, we'll be happy to go ahead and help with that as well. But as it relates to the existing orders that are in place, there's no longer that requirement that you must wear a mask, that you must social distance, et cetera. And the number of people asking for those dispensations is dramatically fallen. Most people are basically, it's back to business as usual.
Isn't that funny? That's amazing. Because, you know, even now, you know, we're having a new variant, and I've seen it in my office. All of a sudden, it's spiking a little bit with exposures and sickness and stuff like that. Okay, let's talk about the famous or infamous Zoom. Where, you know, when the pandemic hit, we had, you know, so many to just carry on and do business and not let the whole thing come to a screeching halt. We had to utilize, and for people that are watching that aren't involved in the system, you know, one way or the other, we had an apparatus, if you will, called Zoom that allowed people to appear over video and wherever they were, and so we could continue conducting business, but it was over a camera rather than in person. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any Zoom proceedings going on throughout the circuit?
Sure, and not just the circuit, but throughout the state. So as COVID took hold and we needed to go ahead and continue moving things forward, remember that pre-COVID, we weren't really using Zoom. We weren't using Teams. We weren't using some of the technology that was out there. Primarily, if we were going to have some form of a hearing that required audio-visual, it was through court call or some other telephonic system.
Right.
And somebody would call in. Well, you know, if you're going to go ahead and move things forward and you want to be able to make it as close to live as possible, that visual part was a key component. So in comes Zoom, and we hooked that up throughout, not even just within the courthouses, but you know, your office to the jail so you can meet with clients, state attorneys so that they can meet with victims, all of the folks that are involved in that process. And I think what we've learned through the use of Zoom, number one, Zoom is still being used. Technically, we're still, because we're under that Supreme Court administrative order regarding COVID protocols at this point in time, many things are still being done to kind of reduce the actual physical footprint within the courthouse. I believe that, and I'm hopeful that that comes to an end sometime here over the summer, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But as to the use of Zoom at this point, the introduction of this technology and the use of it as an everyday occurrence now, rather than that only every once in a while type activity, we find the efficiencies that have come about because of that. So when you used to have attorneys that took cases from Orlando or Fort Lauderdale, they would have to come up to our circuit for a 15-minute hearing and then turn around to drive 2 hours back.
And charge their clients because they, you know, I mean, time is money.
Sure. So we found that, you know, we'll probably carry those efficiencies on going forward post-COVID, right? So that the Supreme Court has recognized that. There are different rules committees that are in place right now looking to go ahead and change the rules as it relates to civil procedure, criminal procedure, family procedure, to try and employ some of those things that we've picked up and know that will provide those efficiencies going forward.
But it's utilized in criminal and civil, correct?
It is. Now, we don't have trials, jury
Right.
trials over Zoom, but docket calls, things that take a few minutes to take care of, a status hearing.
Right,
Some
right.
of our less substantive motions hearings, things that you can do by Zoom, that everybody agrees to do by Zoom.
Right, right.
To keep those cases moving forward, we absolutely use those. Same thing in the civil arena. No civil trials. You could do one if you had everybody consent.
Right.
And I believe, as I recall through the entire period of COVID, I think there was one consent in a civil case, and none that I know of in criminal.
Right, right. Well, at least, thank goodness, from not
Right.
from my office.
Right, right. No, and while Zoom provides those efficiencies as it relates to some of those lower level functions, it's a different animal when you're talking about a jury trial, right? Because you can see certain things on TV,
Right.
but you see more physically, right? You want to be able to read entire body language,
Right.
not just a headshot, things of that nature. You get that feel rather than what you can just see on television.
Well, and particularly in the criminal arena, and I'm speaking as the public defender, I would be jumping all up and down if a judge was going to sentence one of our clients without seeing the whites of their eyes, so to
Sure.
speak, and things like that. It's things are get lost over the camera. Of course, there's the old school and the new school. The younger, it's like working from home versus,
Sure.
going into the office. There are benefits to both, but there's something about, the human
Right.
contact that you just can't replace
Sure.
on a camera.
And it's not just, the interwork with your colleagues, right? Lawyers being able to bounce ideas off each other, having that private conversation,
Right,
things
right.
of that nature. But again, when you turn it back to the idea of jurors, right? Witnesses, things,
Right.
people that you want to see.
I mean,
right?
the judge instructs a jury, at the end of the case, you as a juror have to use your common sense. You have to look at the demeanor of a juror and assess if they're telling the truth or not. And sometimes you could, no, I'm not even going to say something. You can never do that, I don't think, over a camera. You got to be there and see their,
And not just that, but we talk about some of those efficiencies that we picked up from
right,
using it.
right.
If you talk to some other judges, they would find much in the nature of inefficiency because there are non-tech savvy people, me included, right? So
I was going to say, right.
You get the meme of the guy with the cat expression or
Right.
the cat face, and then you've got folks who you say 15 times, please unmute yourself, and
Yeah.
those type of things that extend cases, where you have a little bit better control of that when you're in a courtroom.
Right.
So,
No, that's
but
a
again,
good point.
But I do think that, like I said, over the course of what we've learned, I think we're going to be able to take some positive things out of this,
Right.
And use those going forward, and those things that have been ingrained in what we've done for centuries, right? The actual jury trials and those substantive motions, things
Right.
of that nature. We'll have people back in, and we do now.
Yeah.
So I think we'll continue that going forward.
Well, it's funny as as this went along and the Supreme Court, had a committee and all of that. I know from the defense perspective, we were scared because we were worried the Supreme Court was going in a direction of, because they thought it was efficient of, going into more Zoom proceedings, not the low-level hearings that you speak of. And, I just shook my head and said, not that I'm so brilliant, but I just said, there is no way it's going to morph into something like that. They can't. And sure enough, it did not,
Right.
Okay, so what are the biggest challenges as a chief judge? Other than herding cats,
Sure, right.
those are my words, not yours.
And it's an apt description. So what was really interesting when I became chief judge was when you're elected and you get an assignment, you're in a criminal division or a family division or a civil division, and you get your caseload, every day you just simply show up, you go into your courtroom, and you manage those things that are in front of you.
Right.
and you really don't pay much attention to the inner workings of how it got there, right? So
Right.
we show up on day X, and here's my cases.
Right.
But all those things behind the scenes that it took to get there, right? So
yeah,
if it's
the
a problem,
clerks, the law
sure.
enforcement. Look,
But within the court system itself, not your office, within the judicial area, I mean, we have trial court administration.
right.
And as I became the chief judge, yes, we have 29 judges, we have 4 magistrates, we have 2 hearing officers, we have roughly 4 or 5 traffic hearing officers, but then it's all the support people, right? So it's not just the judicial assistants, but it's the finance arm, it's
Right.
the case management arm, it's the mediation arm, and I didn't realize when I started, it's a 160-person organization. We have a trial court administrator, Patty Harris, who does a wonderful job trying to deal with that side of the house.
Right.
But you know, between the two of us, again, the herding cats at times philosophy is it.
Right.
You know, and no different than your office or the state attorney's office or the other players that are involved in the system. You deal at this level with Tallahassee and our state government, and then you deal with the boards of county commissioners for funding as it relates to the things that we have
Right.
throughout the circuit, all the clerks of courts, the different sheriffs, the different chiefs of police, all of those different things. So it's more of the administrative function. I do keep a current caseload. I do have mental health court. I have
Right.
adult drug court. I have juvenile drug court. And I fill in throughout the circuit for other judges who need things.
Absolutely.
That when they're gone. But I think the biggest change was the administrative arm and
Well-
dealing with the administrative aspect of the courts.
And ultimately, I mean, you know, certainly it's an honor to be the chief judge. A lot more work, but I think, I mean, you tell me. I'm sure you will be a better regular judge when you're not chief judge anymore, because you will know all the inner workings that most judges never see or never touch.
Sure. And, you know, I think, you know, the things that you learn in the process of being the chief in those different management aspects,
Right.
all of those things carry forward to when you go back to an assignment, you can just focus on one area of law.
Right.
How you manage your docket, you know, how you set up your time.
Right.
And you do that not just for you, but all the other people that are involved, right? I mean, everybody's got a life outside of what we do. So how do we set this up to best take care of not just the people that come in front of you, the attorneys that come in front of you, the bailiffs, the clerks, state attorney, public defender.
Right.
Everybody that's involved. I think you get a little better understanding of all of the things that go into that. So it helps you vision-wise going forward when you sit there back in a regular assignment.
Right. Well, I know Judge Merman and you, and I think the previous ones as well, have kind of taken on the diversion court assignment
Right.
as a miscellaneous part of their jobs and stuff. Have you gained a better, understanding
Sure.
of that? Yeah.
Sure, and I dabbled in it when I had a regular assignment, whether it was in the criminal
Right.
division or family, things of that nature. But it is, I don't think most of your viewers know, we have 16 specialty courts in the 19th Judicial Circuit.
Which is incredible.
And we are a medium-sized circuit in the state, our 4 counties. We do more with less than virtually anybody, staff-wise to case ratio.
More with less than anybody in the state.
In the state, yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, but I think that the public should take away from our conversation, if they looked at the caseload and the statistics, the service that we provide to the community by taking these folks that have a mental illness, that would likely not have committed a crime but for that illness, or a particular drug addiction,
Right.
where while on drugs they were committing a crime.
Right.
And I think the other thing that folks should probably know is that we're not talking about all these people are murderers. We're not talking about all of these people are committing sexual battery. A lot of these folks that I see on a daily basis are misdemeanors.
Yeah, a low level.
They've trespassed.
Right.
You know, they've been somewhere where they shouldn't have been. They stole a loaf of bread. They stole. I mean,
Right.
these are not
Right.
earth-shattering things. But in the vast majority of them, what you're going to see is they haven't been on their medication for a lengthy period of time. You'll find that they're self-medicating through the use of illegal narcotics.
Right.
Dual diagnosis, so they're not only the mental health, but they've got the component of the drug use. And the whole goal out of our diversion courts is, look, we're going to get you to the treatment that you need. We're going to try and get you back being productive. We're going to get you stable. And at the end of this, if you successfully complete the course, that particular case is dismissed. because the
Yeah.
whole goal out of it wasn't punishment within the system. The
And
whole
it's
goal
not
out of
an
it,
easy way out. That's
No,
the
no,
other
no, no,
thing.
no.
When I give speeches to the public, I always mention, you know, these are not giveaway programs. In fact, the opposite. It would be easier to plea some of these
Sure.
people to the charge and have them placed on regular probation for 3 months and pay back the $2 for the loaf of bread and go on than what they're putting themselves through, because some of these courts, to complete successfully and graduate, they can be in there 2-3 years.
Sure. And
Coming to court every week.
unfortunately, I think that loaf of bread is about $4 now.
Yeah, I was
But-
gonna, yeah.
But you know, the idea, Diamond, is absolutely correct. So that they're not giveaway programs. Your incentive is, once you've gotten back on your medication, once we've got you back on the programs that you likely had previously.
Right.
You know, because a lot of these folks are not first time in the system. A
Right.
lot of them are.
But they're not
they've-
nefarious criminals either.
No, no, no. But you know, it's a cycle, right?
Right.
So we get them stable, we get them treated, we get them back to the different agencies that can assist them post being in the system.
Right.
And unfortunately, resource-wise, we can't live with these folks, right?
Yeah.
We can't make sure that 24/7 they've taken their meds in the morning, taken their meds in the evening, that they weren't using some illegal substance, et cetera. And those are everyday struggles for those people,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, it's something that they're going to deal with lifelong, and rather than incarcerate for those lower level things, it's a matter of trying to get them back on track so that we can use, quite frankly, get them productive and use tax dollars in a better way.
Right. Well, you know, it's funny. I was just recently at a public defender meeting where all the elected throughout, there's 20 of us, like, you know, 20 state attorneys. And the common thread, there were several, but one of the common threads was the incredible increase in people, those with mental illness. And, you know, that's the other thing that we need to remind the public. This is not some defense, smoke and mirrors, you know, get the guy off because he's crazy type thing. These are people with serious mental illness, and because we're the lowest in the country on funding for those with mental illness, there is no place to go. There are no places to treat or house them. And so we've got to step up and fill those gaps. And it's really as bad as I've seen it in 30 years. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's pretty spooky.
Sure. Well, you know, I think the community as a whole, when I say the community, I'm talking about our 4 counties.
Right.
The agencies within those counties have stepped up to help fill the gap that the
Oh,
state
yeah.
has not funded. And I think it should be impressed upon your viewers as well that the bulk of those cases, again, we're not talking about the folks that are insanity defense cases.
Right,
You know,
right.
we're not talking about murder. We're not talking about those big things. What we're really talking about is folks that right now are presently incompetent to proceed, right?
Right.
ITP cases. And we re-educate, we train so that they understand how the system works and what they
Right.
do.
Right.
And the bulk of those things are not done just because the defense says, oh, we have somebody who's ITP, we want
Right.
them to do something else. This is a matter of, you know, look, your office might raise the red flag, then there's a report that's done by a doctor, and the
Right.
state gets the report, and the state typically needs to concur about whether or not, look, this is a good candidate or not a good candidate
Right.
for these programs.
Right.
You know, and in the course of doing that, I think our average docket right now, and I have a docket of those folks 2 to 3 times a month, are running between 60 and 90 people at a time.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, by the way, just in St. Lucie County.
Oh, yeah, that's
My
what
docs
I'm
are just in
saying.
St. Lucie. We
Yeah.
have the same thing in Indian River and Martin and Okeechobee.
Yeah, and I do have to give, you know, a shout out, which I do every chance I get, because you can't ignore it, to this circuit for being on the forefront of the specialty courts, the diversion courts. It's caught on to be smart on crime and to do things like this rather than just incarcerate. But we were at the forefront of that. We were doing
Sure.
that 16 years ago when nobody had a mental health court, and it works. And all the diversion courts have extraordinarily successful reduced recidivism rates. But I know you know, having done it, I mean, the average recidivism rate for somebody with mental illness that goes to prison is about 68%. If you put them in mental health court and they successfully complete, you're looking at, right now, I think the last time I looked was between 3 and 7% success. And
So not only do you get a more functional member of society if they
Right.
stay on their medication, continue with their treatment plan, then they don't come back to the system. But how do you as a taxpayer want to spend your fund? Do you want to spend your funds at $100 a day incarcerating somebody? Or do you want a
Exactly.
fraction of that through one of these other programs?
Right, right.
So-
And that's why we get, you know, you get buy-in, we get buy-in from law enforcement, because they don't want their jails overcrowded, number one. Number two, they, you know, they don't want to be the mental health facility for the circuit. And
Sure.
if we, without doing things like this, that's what ends up happening, you know.
And again, through our 4 counties, through this 19th Judicial Circuit, through the cooperation between your office, the state attorney's office, law enforcement, bringing those cases to the judiciary
Right.
when the players believe, look, this is an appropriate case to be brought here, and then reviewing those reports, then we can go ahead and do some of those things and have a positive outcome
Right.
for the circuit, for the taxpayer, for the individual that's involved, for everybody.
How do you, and you know, we've got about 2 minutes left. I told you it'd go fast. How do you have meetings with your fellow judges about things? I
Sure.
mean, if there's issues, what kind of, I guess I want to know, what kind of power does the chief judge have over the people that they are?
You know, and it's interesting because if you read the statute, there's not much. It's more.
But-
It's more of an administrative function, and you know, I think probably the thing that impacts the judges the most is the assigning of where they go for their next assignment.
Right.
So everybody wants, you know, a certain aspect or a certain area. There are, you know, universally when we have our meetings, and we do those a couple of times a year, you'll see based on some of the things that we fill out about preference for what division you want to be in. Universally, there's a few of those that, you know, if I've got to go, I'll go. But
Right.
I prefer to do, you know, A rather than B.
Right.
But, you know, when you say, you know, what power does the chief judge have? We're all independently elected officials. So, you know, the power lies with the voters.
Right.
And then ultimately, I just go back to your phrase, Diamond, I heard cats. And that's it. So,
But certainly, and we'll kind of end with this. You have generally great cooperation with your judges.
You know, I can't speak highly enough. As I said at the beginning, we all kind of get pigeonholed into our assignment.
Right.
Right? And we put our blinders on and we take care of what we need to take care of for the public. The group of judges, the magistrates, the hearing officers that we have in this circuit
Right, because you're over all
are,
of them.
sure, they are dedicated, they are professional, they look to perform their job to the highest capacity they can. They understand what the public needs. They understand that this is a public service job.
Right.
That's what we do.
Right.
And I couldn't be more happy or proud of the group of people that I get a chance to work with every day.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you. This was wonderful.
It was a pleasure.
No, thanks again.